everyone, and welcome to our weekly office hours. I have 3 people on screen today, which is super cool. My name is Jeff Blankenburg, and with me I have Scott Searley and Ryan Lowe. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks.
Good to have everybody here. We're in this weird place where next week we're going to have an infinity number of questions about a little event that's coming up. Have you guys heard about this? Alexa, have you heard about that?
Is there a new Kesha?
I think I got an email about it.
It's a new Kesha concert. You're correct.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect.
That's what I thought.
No, lots and lots of stuff to talk about. Even though we don't have any answers for you about Alexa Live. So if you guys are super excited, I'm glad. I'm excited. There's lots of cool stuff going to be announced tomorrow as part of Alexa Live, but you're not going to find out about any of that here today. That being said, if you aren't already registered, you should know by now what your schedule looks like tomorrow. From about 9 to 2 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow, we have a full day of programming, and you're going to see stuff. We have a keynote from a bunch of our key executives. We have a whole bunch of sessions for device makers and software developers and business leaders to come in and learn about all the latest and greatest stuff that's coming out for Alexa. So if you guys aren't already signed up, you can go to alexa.design/live and get registered and check it out. You should know by tomorrow what your day looks like. So here's my recommendation, though. Maybe you can't go. Maybe you got to work. Maybe you got meetings or whatever. I totally understand that. Here's why I recommend you still register. Because we're going to have all of this content available after the fact. All of it will be available on demand, so you can watch it at your own convenience. But to get access to that, you're not going to require a login or anything, but to know where it is and to be able to find all of that stuff, we'll send you an email. Here's a link to all of the sessions. Here's all the stuff you're going to need. So even if you don't have a chance to watch it live tomorrow, and I'm sure you'll be able to see all the live tweeting and all of the other stuff that's going to be going on during the day, you'll still get an email in your inbox tomorrow afternoon or maybe Thursday morning saying, hey, here's the stuff you want to know about. And on top of that, I've got one more for you. We have an event called Tech Talks every month. It's always the 4th Thursday of every month, I believe. And during these Tech Talks, we always do something cool and interesting related to a specific technology related to Alexa. Sometimes it's hardware, sometimes it's software, but it's always an Alexa-based kind of cool deep dive. And because it's the day after Alexa Live, what we decided to do, my old friend Paul Cutzinger and I are going to team up, and we're going to host a 1-hour event that's going to be a quick run-through recap of all of the stuff that happens tomorrow. That's on Thursday. And if you want to tune in and in 1 hour just kind of get a quick digest of all of the things that came out and Paul and my opinion on those things, that will be the place for you to be. So you can find that if you look for Alexa Tech Talks. I don't actually know the URL. I'll find that here in a second once I stop talking. But that's all the stuff that's going on. Other big news that I haven't seen in the chat yet is that my backdrop changed a little bit. Scott, I know you're used to the toys and the lights. And now here I am in front of this wood gorgeousness. Here, check this out. We'll go full screen just for a second. Boom! Wow. All the wood. Look at all
chic.
Look at all these devices.
I feel like I'm at an Airbnb.
I know, right? So the good news for everybody that feels like off kilter right now, like I don't even know how to handle this. I have good news, and the good news is I'm not done yet. I was hoping to be done by today. I wanted today to be like wait a second, Jeff just changed everything. I started almost immediately after the Alexa and Friends episode last Thursday. Started ripping stuff down, tearing things off the walls. I've been working on it all weekend. But to get the rest of the shelves that are going to go here, there's a connector piece that I needed from IKEA. And they dropped the ball, and they didn't have any in stock when I needed them. So my option was drive to Cincinnati, which is about 2 hours away, to buy those connector pieces, or just wait until this afternoon. And so they're in stock. I have the order already. They should be ready by 5 p.m. my time, Eastern time. So my hope is by Thursday, by that thing that I'm going to do with Paul Cutzinger on Thursday, my hope is by then I will have all the stuff back up on the walls, including many, many more toys and surprises. There might even be a monitor on the wall behind me before we're all done with this. So we'll see where all this goes. But yeah, that's that. So with that, I just filled 5 minutes, guys. We just did it. 5 full minutes of me talking.
Okay, see you guys next week.
Right. So let's get in, because I think there's a couple of good questions here already. let's see. Fabio wants to know if I'm excited. I hope I seem excited. I think tomorrow's going to be awesome. And we got 1091 KOR on YouTube says, I really love Alexa. Awesome. So do we.
Nice.
Let's see. Revital Schwartz on LinkedIn says, what do you think the biggest achievement of the AI, the Alexa specific, I think they mean specifically, what do you want to achieve in the next 5 years? This is a fantastic question. I have an answer for this. So my philosophy, and I think Amazon's philosophy on this, is that you've probably seen us use the words ambient computing quite a bit more lately. We've always been using it, but I think we're really leaning harder into this idea of ambient computing. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that term, the idea of ambient computing is the idea that your computers are just around you, but they're there in a natural way. And voice is obviously a really good representation of that, but it's not the only representation, right? There's a lot of things that we can do with things like cameras and sensors and all sorts of other stuff. And in fact, I had a really good conversation with someone from a company called Span. His name is Chad Conway, and he and I chatted on Thursday during the episode of Alexa and Friends. His company makes a smart, for lack of a better term, just to illustrate it for all of you, a smart fuse box. So everybody has that kind of utility panel in their house that manages all of the circuits. And I had a good conversation with him about how their device, the Span, is a smart enabled version of that. So imagine being able to go on your phone in the same way you can turn lights and stuff off. You could turn individual circuits of your house off. And then it also gives you the smarts to recognize, like, hey, by the way, this room's using a lot of power, but it doesn't need to be, or we can turn specific light switches off, stuff like that. So it was a really interesting conversation, but it made me think a lot more about ambient computing. He kind of pushed me even outside of my comfort zone. And one of the things that he talked about was the idea of getting rid of completely light switches. We won't need light switches in the future. And I was really surprised by this conversation. And I promise I'm answering the ambient computing question. But the idea of getting rid of light switches really gets at the core of ambient computing, because now what we're really talking about is the house being aware of what's going on and being able to accommodate and adapt to those situations. So lights are on in a room when you're in a room. Why would I need the light switch to turn off? Now, can I always turn those lights off if I want to? Like you're watching a movie and you want to turn the lights off? Of course you can. But by default, based on times and people, facial recognition, image signatures, all sorts of stuff that you could use, those things should be able to determine in a normal situation, when you walk through a room, you want the lights on. And when you leave the room, you want the lights off. And the same thing could go if you have, I know, like Ryan, you live in the Phoenix area, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So did your house have multiple air conditioners?
We have like 4 total
right.
in our house.
Right. And they manage different
zones
for your home, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is another example of where you could take that kind of ambient knowledge about what's going on in the environment and say, well, why am I currently cooling their bedroom when they're not really going to be in the bedroom until at least 7 p.m.? Like, let's not really push it on that AC until it's time. Now that may be crazy in Phoenix, like it'd be 130 in there and you wouldn't ever be able to sleep. But you can see the idea of how that example might work.
But you hit on the core problem, which is I can set up a schedule, but the schedule is going to be wrong, because here, if you turn it off during the day, it gets too hot, and then you end up using more energy just to cool it back down. So to have something that's constantly trying different techniques, I thought that conversation with Chad was amazing, and the no light switches just totally blew me away. Not because of light switches, but because of everything else that we're not thinking about that goes away with that. Like light switch is just one thing, but what else are we just taking for granted because we just do it every day and use it? Yeah, that to me is the future. I got really excited. So
agreed, Scott. So as part of this conversation on Thursday, I was kind of pitching him the idea that I don't want light switches to go away, but I would like, almost like, you know how we have wireless charging pads for our phones? Mm-hmm. I want those behind my walls, so that, like, I'm working on this monitor problem right now. I have a shelf that's going to go like here, and then a monitor that's going to sit right here, kind of in the perfect spot for the backdrop. I'm like, man, I'm going to have to run a wire all the way down the wall and behind the shelves because that's what I've got to do. But man, if there was a way to just put it up and it was close enough to the wall that it just sucked power through the wall, my God, that would be amazing.
So you know about the circuitry ink?
Say that again.
Have you seen the circuitry ink?
No.
So they've made, I say they, I have no idea who is. I think it was a Kickstarter at first, and then it went public. They've made it's a kit for mostly just like for kids to teach them how to make electronics. But this draw it on a paper, and it connects an actual circuit from a battery. As you draw the pen with a pen, it connects the light bulb to a battery on the page. And that application, that's exactly where we're headed. Like the ambient computer concept to me is something that it's like basically you walk through your house and your house knows what you want and where you're going and what you're doing. Mm-hmm. AI to kind of circle all the way back. AI has come so far in the last 5 years. This is what I want. I want an AI to go on the internet and scrub everything that has me in it so that I can like approve whether or not I want this thing to be okay to be on the internet or not. And then like protect me constantly from any attacks from cyberware, malware, and all that other stuff. What I would like to see is, I would love to be able to have a Jarvis. That's what I want. That's kind of where I feel like we're headed.
I'm 100% with you. I think that there's a lot of innovation and invention that needs to happen to make that happen. For example, figuring out this wiring thing, right? Like I don't even necessarily want those electrified ink strips on the wall. I've seen people that have done stuff like that. I want it invisible, right? I'm not married to drywall or sheetrock, as some people call it.
Well, there's also magnetic primer.
Yeah. So like there are things, but I want it, but I know for a fact my wife wants it. Right. I mean, every time I do anything that's interesting with electronics, she's like, but where are those wires going to go? And she's totally right. Because that's the nightmare of all of the interesting electronic stuff that you have to do. And so like, as an example here, I'll see if I can go to this view. Boom. There we go. All of these devices are going to be powered. Every one of them is going to be on and ready to go. Now I haven't done that yet. The little grommets that I'm waiting for come today from Amazon. But what that required me to do, you can see that I have some cabinets below. And the LED strips that I have way over here, they come down and they go under and they're right in that gap. So it kind of lights that up underneath the shelf. But what these cabinets actually are going to be is my power solution. So I'm going to run small holes in the device. I'm going to run the wires through and then into the top of these cabinets. You'll never see it, but it'll keep the desktop looking really clean. I won't have to worry about any of the wires. And then all of the plugs and power strips and all the other stuff will live inside. There's 3 of these boxes. Mm-hmm. And that's how I'm going to manage all of my power. So you don't have to see it. But that takes like thought and engineering and planning to do to get that stuff in the right place and whatever. And it's annoying. I'm so ready for wireless power. There was, I think ThinkGeek used to do this when they were independent of GameStop and all that, but they used to have annually, they'd have a couple of interesting products that they would list on their website for April Fool's Day.
Oh, yeah.
And one that they had that was really cool was the idea of an electrical beam power, right? Where you could set a unit up near your outlet, and then as long as it had line of sight, the device someplace else, it was kind of like how Wi-Fi would work, right? But you could go someplace else, and then it would just beam the power over the air. And I was like, I know you're kidding, but that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Tesla thought of that, actually. Nikola Tesla invented. Apparently, it was one of the things that he had claimed that he could do was he figured out a way to project power. I mean, who knows? Because Wardenclyffe burned down. I'm a big follower of Nikola Tesla. Yeah. But yeah, that was a big one. That was if we could wire power, if we could broadcast power, which is something that, as I found out from my dad, that physicists have not been able to figure out yet. That would be like, that's where I'm headed. That's where I want to be. I want to be able to hang like you're talking about, just hang my TV on the wall and be done.
Right.
Like that'd be fine. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine. I'm pulling all the wires out of the walls. I have this old house. So I'm going through the outside I'm going around the outside and I'm pulling all of the old phone lines out, all of the old just telephone lines. off of the side of the house, and I'm pulling off all this other cable and all this other stuff. And my friend Brittany said, "Don't you think you want to keep the cable in the rooms, though?" I mean, I'm like, no, because my TV runs on Wi-Fi. You know, I have a full. It doesn't even get slowed down either. It doesn't even like I would expect a few years ago, like a technology like that would have been. If you put a TV on Wi-Fi, it's going to take a long time to load. It's going to buffer a lot. It doesn't. It works great. And so like you don't need any of these cables anymore drilled through your house to just watch television. And that's where it's, if you kind of think it like that's where we're headed. That's where we're rolling. Eventually there will be no more wires. There will be no more computer monitors and no more keyboards. Those are my 3 predictions. You can all have that. You can write it down, and in 10 years, if I was right, I would give you.
I would like to write that down. I think I would challenge you on the keyboards one.
Yeah,
but I'm with you on the other stuff. I have yet to believe that there is an interface until we can do like full mind mapping, which I've seen some awesome advances actually, like in the last few weeks, where there was a man who's a full paraplegic, right? Can't move anything. Below
they just got him to talk. Yeah,
and he was able to talk. Just using, I mean, that's unbelievable. But it's still pretty invasive, right? I mean, that's not something that you can do easily.
For now, I mean, Neuralink just put. I'm almost certain that Elon Musk already has those things in his skull. I'm almost certain of it. Like I feel like
that seems like
he's the kind of guy that would do something experimental like that, just and not tell anyone.
Right. He'll unveil it when he's in space.
Yeah. We're almost there. I mean, we're getting there. I've been reading about nanites lately. You guys want to talk about futurism? I will go for hours.
Yeah, I feel like there's an opportunity for the 3 of us to just have another show.
Yeah.
Talking about cool stuff we like.
I can talk about like nanites. These scientists just created a nanite swarm that broke the blood-brain barrier.
Wow.
Which, if anybody is, familiar with this problem, it is a huge deal. It's the biggest problem with pharmaceuticals, is breaking the blood-brain barrier and figuring out how that works. And they just did it with robots.
Yeah, it's amazing. Tiny, tiny robots. All right, so I should answer some questions that are here. Ajay Vasu wants to know, when will skill backgrounding feature be released in the India region? Well, technically, Ajay, skill backgrounding hasn't been fully released yet in the United States. It is still a developer preview feature, from what I understand. I could be corrected on that, but I'm pretty sure that's still the state. So unfortunately, I don't have any dates or times for you. That is something that I get asked quite often. When is this feature coming, or when will I get this language, or whatever? We don't have those answers. And even in a position where we did know something, like I know what's coming tomorrow, I'm not in a position where I can share that information. So I wish that I could, but that is not that's future roadmap stuff, and I don't have any answers for you on that one. The next one, though, Trade Last, this is a really good question for Scott. And Scott, I don't want you to commit to anything here that you're uncomfortable committing to, but I'd love a discussion about this. He says in the certification channel, we've had previous Slacks dedicated to just a specific product, like Alexa Conversations. We also did one for APL. These were last fall as part of a hackathon effort. And it's really a lot of the reason why we now have the community Slack that exists today. But what he's asking is, there was representatives from the certification team regularly answering certification questions in the certification channel. And what he wants to know is, would it be possible to make that happen on a relatively regular basis, even if those people push people back to tickets or a lot of the things that you guys work on already, Scott? Is that something that we could do in the future? Just have you guys kind of lurking or paying attention to what's going on in the cert channel?
I tell you what, I absolutely cannot guarantee or commit to anything,
Sure.
But that is a fantastic idea. And to be honest, this is something we've kind of been playing around with a lot on my team for the developer advocacy group. So here's what I can do. I like I said, I can't, because of the weight of everything else that we've got going on, and there are other projects and stuff happening all the time in Alexa Live. So I can't give you any kind of answer on that. But what I can do, though, is tell you that is a fantastic idea, and I'm going to pitch that.
Okay.
we wanted to do something like this. We wanted to do something that was like, I know we tried using Twitter, like we tried using to try to reach out to the developer community that way. It didn't quite take. I don't know. It's hard. It's been kind of hard. It's been like a lot of casting, but not a lot of catches. So, but that's a great idea to have. And I know the Slack channel is a big deal. Slack, for some reason, it's just the thing that everybody uses. It's like Q-tips. You all know what a Q-tip is, and yet there are thousands of brands. So but I will absolutely take that to my next meeting. In fact, I'm going to just write that down.
Cool.
So that I don't forget that.
Yeah, I think at a bare minimum, it might be a nice way, because there isn't a like direct chat-based way to communicate with the CERT team. It's always send an email, wait for a response.
Well, yeah, and you're also dealing with time differences. And these folks are all over the world. Okay, it's not just in one place. It's all over the whole planet. So it's difficult to kind of nail down exactly what's going on. I mean, to say nothing about the incredible struggle that India is dealing with right now with the COVID crisis. It's been absolutely hammering them, and we've been trying to take the pressure off as much as we can to try to do whatever we can to try to help. But so I mean, the certificate, it's kind of a mixed bag of answers there. It could be tomorrow, could be in a week. I mean, it's being done by humans. Every single thing is being done by humans, so it's hard to nail it down exactly. Slack. Okay. I'm writing this down in case you guys were wondering. I'm man of my word.
All right. Let me see if I can get back to my list of questions here. W. Georgia wants to know, has anyone mapped a controller to an Alexa skill? So I saw that he posed this question in the Slack, actually, but I haven't had a chance to give this a try. I can use the Luna controller to interact with a bunch of interesting stuff on a Fire TV.
Like the Valve controller. Does anybody have a Steam controller yet? One of the Valve boxes? No? Okay.
But the Luna controller is actually kind of interesting. It has become part of my travel backpack because I can play it anywhere. I don't have to carry a console or anything. Are you guys using the Luna controller?
No. What are you talking about?
Amazon Luna. So.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and I'm all about knowing my product. That's terrible. Oh, I feel awful now.
So Luna is basically a cloud-based gaming controller. And then you can watch the games on anything. You can watch them on your phone. You can watch them on your in a browser. You can watch them on your Fire TV. Lots of different places that you can do that. But when you're watching yourself play the game, right? So it's basically streaming the video back to you. Very low latency, so that like when you move the controller, your character moves. But it's awesome because the only thing you need is the controller.
So I've actually been playing around with the NVIDIA Go streaming service, which if you're right next to the Wi-Fi and you then it is fantastic on the Wi-Fi. You normally have to connect it with a cable for me, but it sounds very similar. It sounds like how many you have a lot of games and stuff, and
yeah, it's got a good library here. I'll share the link with the gang here. Let's see if I have a.
I may have to order one of those for research purposes.
For research purposes, for sure.
For research and quality control, I can probably expense them. Oh wait, I'm not going to do that.
I just posted a link, and the controller's not even that expensive. I want to say it was like $30 or $40.
Oh,
I bought it on the launch day, so it might be a little more now. But
you talk about the future of stuff. Like all of our personal electronics are going to be gone. Like there's not going to be. This is how it's going to work. We're going to have all centralized computer systems and our ambient computer systems back in our houses running everything for us, and we're just going to have a PAN, which is a personal area network, and that'll be that. You'll have your entire computer device on your ring and your contact lenses.
But I think that's the joy of what I refer to as the democratization of data, right? Like as an individual, I have all sorts of data spread all over the place, and going back to the user owning their data, as you were describing earlier, Scott. I think that given a situation where I can start letting all of the disparate services that I have start talking with each other and sharing data about me to make those services better, that's a really interesting play for me. Because right now I feel like most marketing, even though they're doing their very best to target me, I don't feel like I fall into the normal buckets of people. And so I get recommended all of this weird stuff that doesn't really fit for me at all.
Yep.
And I feel like if I could let these services know more about me, that's better for me.
Everybody knows about the algorithm that, you know, finds what we like and stuff. And that's cool. But like, imagine having an artificial intelligence telling the algorithm what you want,
right?
And like having it know what you want because you've told it.
Agreed.
And like know what your limits are, know like what you like, what you don't like, but it's intuitive because it's intelligent.
But what I like about what you're talking about, Scott, is that AI could also be in control of what gets shared. Like you could tell it, like, I don't want my birthday to be shared anywhere. And it could own that and make sure that that is stayed safe. And then could go out and scrub that in different places. Like it truly is in your control. Because I think the problem with sharing data across services is obviously the privacy issue. But to add an AI on top of that to kind of help be that assistant to say, I'm going to make sure that I own this still. That's the real power.
Yeah, so that's the digital assistant that I think of. I think about a digital assistant. I think of a person who's doing nothing more, who wants nothing more than to like make sure that my identity is safe and that everything is rocking and rolling in my life. That's like an assistant. That's kind of where I would love that. Yeah.
I've been spending a lot of my driving and shower time thinking about this specific problem. The idea of, I used to work at a startup that was focused on the one patient record problem. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but I'll give you the quick pitch. This is for healthcare. If you go to your doctor this morning, and let's say he starts you on a new medication, or he diagnoses you with a specific disease or disorder or whatever, and you walk out of his office and you get hit by a bus and you get picked up by an ambulance and taken to the hospital. The hospital has no idea about any of that stuff. They don't know any of it. And in a best case scenario, if it happened a week or 2 weeks later or whatever, maybe by that time, a lot of the healthcare systems have synced and shared that data so that most of your patient record has been dispersed to the places that you go regularly. But more often than not, they get basic stuff like, yes, this is Jeff. He lives at this address. He has a history of migraines. That's it, right? Like you're not going to know that I fell and cracked my head when I was 7 years old, or that I broke my arm snowboarding, like whatever the thing. You're not going to know a lot of that stuff. You're going to know the very, very basic patient data because all these different systems don't talk to each other very well. So I've been thinking about how you would apply that to this personal assistant AI kind of thing. And it's the same idea. The idea with the one patient record was that not only is there only ever one record and it's shared all the time, always, so everybody has access to everything they need, but the patient themselves owns it. And at any time, they have full access and control to be able to manage and manipulate and change it. So when you go to your psychologist or psychiatrist and you're talking with them, they don't need to know about broken arms or tailbone spurs or whatever you've got. So you can choose on your mobile app that manages all this that, hey, I'm going to share this data with that doctor, and I'm going to share this data with that doctor. And they can always go in and request it and say, hey, I'd love to be able to see your medical history. And you can say, okay, well, you can see this stuff. That's fine. But at the end of the day, you can give and revoke access to all of your data anytime. And now take that to the big picture assistant. I want an assistant, as you described, Scott, that knows everything about me. In a perfect world, it would be able to predict my decision-making. Yeah. So when presented with a brand new scenario, it would say, oh, you guys are going out for food? Let me see the menu. Jeff would order this.
Pizza?
Right. Like, it would know that I'm probably not going to pick any fish items. It would probably, it just knows that stuff. And I've really started thinking about in my head, like as I'm driving, I'm crafting this gigantic JSON object that is all of the possible properties and how do they all filter down and how would I store and manage and retrieve everything that is a person. Oh my goodness. It seems really hard. It's a really hard problem.
Quantum computers.
Yes.
That's how we do it.
Yes. But it does feel like there's got to be some structure or markup, because how do I, as a developer that wants to request access to something, how do I know what to ask for? How do I know that I want their food preference or their food allergies, or like what is the term in code that I use to say I want that thing? And I think there almost has to be like this AI intermediary that's like, well, just ask me what you want. Like say allergies, and then I'll go retrieve the thing that I think is allergies for you, right? Like there has to be a disambiguation layer there, so that
Context.
you need to know the full schema. They just need to ask for the thing they want, and the AI serves them the thing that most makes sense. Anyway,
yeah, it's context. Yeah, this is fascinating.
All right, back on topic.
Yep.
Carbox on Facebook asked, is it possible to use APLA and APL, the visual side of APL, at the same time? And the answer to that is yes. I believe you can either combine them in the same document, the same directive call, or you can add them as multiple directives at the same time. But yes, you can absolutely have APL and APLA, which is the APL audio, at the same time. That was your question, so I'm just giving you a yes answer. But you can dig into that. There are definitely lots of articles on that. I'm writing a skill that lets me move. Oh, Brian, I've seen your stuff on Slack as well. I'm writing a skill that lets me move a timer or reminder from the room where I set it to the room where I'm in. Could ambient computing detect which room I'm in? Yes, if you had access to that data. So here's a good example. I have all of these devices here behind me, but I have devices like this all over my house. They have microphones. Some of them have cameras. The capabilities there, right? The capability, if I were to put something like this in every room of my house, the capability for them to detect what room I'm in is very doable, especially once I speak. If it knows, because we already can do some voice ID kind of stuff. So if it knew like, hey, I'm in the master bedroom right now, then that also means I'm not in these other places. So let's move the timer to where he is currently. So yes, I feel like from a capabilities perspective, yes, that would be possible. But today, as developers, we don't have access to the camera at all. We don't have access to the microphone directly. We only get to know what intent they indicated. So because privacy and security are so paramount, we haven't unlocked those things yet. We haven't found a good, convenient way to make that easy for developers that's still safe for our customers, if that makes sense. Okay.
The safety and privacy issue is a rough one to try to navigate.
I think about how awesome services and the internet as a whole could be if it weren't for bad actors. It would be awesome.
We have the capability to provide the services that people want, the things that we're talking about, but there's the safety and the privacy check that people want us to respect. And I completely understand that. I absolutely want my privacy respected. I want to make sure that my privacy and my data that isn't stolen, isn't like attacked. And in the meantime, like I'm also watching all these things get developed, and I'm like, we could do all of these amazing things, but we can't, I think, I keep coming back to artificial intelligence. That's probably where that's going to end that. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's our eventuality, I think. But man, it's a bright future, despite the fact that we have to deal with all of this bad actor nonsense. I don't remember the name of the movie, but I think it's a Ricky Gervais, The Invention of Lying. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of wish we were in the pre-invention time, right? Where like everybody's just like, yeah, of course, I'm just going to go on the internet and do the things that I'm supposed to do. I'm not going to go hack this server or steal somebody's money or credit cards or whatever. But like the first person to realize, like, wait a second, I can do that. I ruined everything.
Well, I mean, this is all emergent behavior, right? I mean, Alexa's only 6 years old.
Yep.
So like we are technically at the beginning. We are all at the beginning of the telephone age. Like we're all at the beginning of the computer age. It's just frustrating for those of us who can think beyond it. But at the same time, it's like all of the bad guys we're developing this stuff right along with us. So like it is, as much as we develop, they develop, and it's rough. And I've had that thought before. I've had that if we could just go back to the one guy that created the search, or the two guys that created the search engine, and figure out, a way for them to, change the code or I don't know, something. I don't know. But it's all out there. We have no choice.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so Goldzu was chiming in saying that there is some wireless charging tech that can now charge over a distance. I think a lot of the wireless charging tech though is so low power. Like it's good for charging a cell phone, but you wouldn't be able to run a PC off of it. Those are different power needs. So he says estimote.com is something to check out. I'll have to check that out a little later. VoiceDev UK says cables are the number one reason why I don't hang my TV on the wall. It's too unsightly to have all the cables dangling, and it's too hard to hide. I agree. I think that more and more as we build new homes, which we do all the time here in the United States, I know in other places, like the land is all used and you're going to get a house that exists because that's how it works. But I'm starting to see channels built into walls. So it's easy to just fish wires through. Like there's a hole behind the TV, and then you just fish all the wires down through it and it comes out. So Alex, welcome. Yeah, my wall does look different. We'll find out more about that later this week. A. Witters called us 3 guys in a shed. That's what we look like today. All right. Here's a good piece of feedback for you, Scott. VoiceDev UK said he got certification feedback in under 10 minutes yesterday. From the time he sent his message to the time it was 10 minutes. That's amazing.
That's fantastic. That's good to hear. But it's also like, okay, that sounds right.
That's how it should be, right?
Yeah.
Not hours or days.
Yeah, they're working on it. I mean, it depends on the skill, depends on the policy, depends on there's so much stuff that they have to go through, and they are not allowed to change or deviate from those checklists in any way whatsoever, like down to the like ones and zeros. Okay. And so like they have to check everything. And it's just,
I have a message here from Stephen Brown. Who says, to a certain point, the idea of an all-knowing assistant is wonderful, but I like to think for myself as well. And I give a talk on this. It's called People. And I address this specifically because I agree with you. I don't think the point of an all-knowing assistant is to take away all of your thought. What it's meant to do is take away all the mundane stuff. Get all of the things that are just like, did I pay my bills this month? Every time you think that, you're spending cycles. Actually paying your bills, spending cycles. Scheduling dentist appointments, planning like just events in general, all of that stuff goes away. You don't have to worry about it, which now means you are freed up to think about the stuff that's important. And maybe that's just what you want to order for dinner. Great. Okay. Think for yourself, order your own dinner. But it's also like bigger picture stuff, inventing, innovation. Like let us as humans come up with all of that new, amazing stuff, and worrying about whether or not my bills got paid should be somebody else's problem, my assistant's problem. And the example I use with bills is always compelling because nobody likes paying their bills. No one wants to even send the money in. You still have to pay your bills. And, I recognize that there are many people that have more bills than they have income. But the argument I make is that why are you, as some individual human, better at deciding how to best pay your bills, even when you don't have enough money to pay all of them, than some AI someplace? I contend that it probably could make better decisions for you. Here's a great example. Pivot on a dime. Right now, I should pay off my credit card because it's got like a 22% interest rate. But based on my projections for the stock market, instead of paying all of that credit card off right now, I'm expecting over the next month to make 30% on investments across these 3 stocks. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take that money based on projections and a bunch of really solid knowledge. I'm going to invest that money, make more than the 22%, and then we'll pay that off later.
Yeah, it's the money game.
Right. So, but am I the best qualified? Like that would take me a ton of time and research and whatever, or I could trust a digital assistant to do this. And I think once that utility comes into play, I think that's really interesting. Another one I use for money is the idea of refinancing your house. If the interest rates get really low, you hear about it in the news, and then you're like, oh, maybe I should look and see if I can get a lower interest rate. But what if you just got a notification from your assistant that's like, hey, I refinanced your house today. Your payment just went down by $80.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right? Like I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to be paying attention to mortgage rates or any of that stuff. It just did it for me. Now, of course, I gave it the autonomy to do that and whatever. But yeah, I think that stuff's really interesting.
Well, I mean, it's like an app. It's like an app on your phone. If you ever, like, I don't know if anybody else plays these idle games, the idle economy, whatever games. I have an apocalypse one going right now that I'm for a wizard and a tower. It's like that. It's like basically you set this little automation to go, and it does its thing, and it just happens to also be with your checking account. It's not any different. They're just numbers. They're the exact same thing. It's numbers are numbers are numbers. So, like if you can have an artificial intelligence that is watching things to the millisecond, that is down to like the nanosecond of trade times and trade windows and like all these different possibilities with your rates going up and down. Like, I mean, it connects up with the Fed. I mean, it would, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, and the AI has gotten so good in the stock market that at least the New York Stock Exchange inside their building, where like the internet comes in, they had to add miles of cable to slow down all of the AI systems that were trying to hit the stock exchange.
Yeah, Lehman Brothers. Yeah,
because otherwise, your proximity to the building dictated how fast you could make decisions. So they added miles and miles of stuff to make it fair for everybody. I think that's such an interesting problem to solve.
I think you hit a key thing, which is, but if you're passionate about that and that's your hobby, then you could still do it. Like, you don't have to delegate all these things over. If you really want to be making dentist appointments every 6 months, by all means, like, you can do that. You don't have to have your assistant do that. To me, so again, I come from the AWS world, and we use the phrase undifferentiated heavy lifting constantly, which is like, you can purchase a server and then build your own database and run it on top of that, or you can just have RDS do that, and you just say spin up a database, right? Like, to me, this is kind of the same type of thing where, like, there are use cases for having your own database running, and if you need those use cases, then great, go do that. But otherwise, don't think about all that stuff. Just use an RDS and let AWS handle all that stuff. So that's my frame of reference for where I'm coming from. But like, that to me is exactly what we're talking about, where, there's lots of things where I would love to delegate over, but then maybe my calendar, my social circle, like AI is telling me like, hey, you should, go have lunch with Jeff. I'm like, I don't really want to. So I'm going to like nix that. Right. Like, I think there's still times where you'd want to have control over it.
Yep. And I would cancel lunch with myself too. I get it.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to start another interesting conversation here. This came in from Louisa Bergman on Facebook. She said, please, Alexa for the deaf, for example, the Ring door alert. In many ways, I think that Alexa has solved a lot of problems for people with disabilities. But for people that are deaf specifically, that's a tricky one. And there are a lot of things that have come to be to help that specific population of people. There's two specifically that I'll call out. And the Alexa app is kind of integral to all of this. So just because you can't hear, obviously you can still use mobile phones. You can still do all of the other stuff that would be expected from a, I don't even know the correct term. It's not normal person, but able-bodied person. As we think about those kinds of things, inside the Alexa mobile app, you can get notifications. So if things happen, like your Ring alert goes off, like the mobile app should be able to serve those things up to you. You can turn on notifications for all sorts of things. But one of the big advancements that I saw that specifically I think helps the deaf population is keyboard mode. Scott, I don't know if you've even seen this, but if you look in the Alexa app, in the top left corner, there is a picture of a keyboard. And if you click on that, you can type to Alexa without ever speaking. You get the exact same interaction, same responses, same everything, just by typing. This is huge for a number of reasons. Sometimes you just can't talk, right? I don't want to be standing in the line at the grocery store to say, what else is on my shopping list? I would type that into my phone, though, and if it could respond to me, that's amazing. But it also, for people that can't speak or hear, then that's a really natural way for them to be able to still participate and engage with all of this software and all of these services without being able to have those specific senses. So I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts on this. I'm sure we could be better about how we accommodate folks that are deaf, but it seems to me like at least that keyboard mode has made huge advancements for what it was prior to that.
Isn't there a doorbell light flash for?
I was thinking the same thing. It feels like there should be. I know.
Should we push the doorknob and have the light flash?
If you have a doorbell camera, it can, obviously it'll just show the camera on your Echo Show or whatever.
Yeah.
If you have an audio only device, I don't know if it does anything unless the skill was to send like a notification. Then the notification would go off. That would probably pop up on your phone, something like that. But I would also think build some kind of routine that says when the doorbell rings, do this stuff. Change the light to red, right? Whatever.
That seems. I'm gonna do some investigation on that. It seems that seems like one of those things. It's like it's so blindingly obvious. That's like like
Louise has made me a deaf user advocate, and so we're gonna figure out who to talk to and how much further we can push some of this stuff. And obviously, Louisa, if you can reach out to me, or I'll try to track you down in the comments. If you have any perspectives or people that we could talk to about what their needs are, we can try and provide that feedback to our product team as well. But that's a great suggestion. And I hope that we're not missing the mark by too much. Okay, I've got one for you, Scott. That is coming in from someone that calls themselves Bird Bars. They say, hey, I understand it's a busy time and I'm excited about the events that are coming up. Thank you. Have you had a chance to review the 2 emails with our case numbers sent July 13 after last week's show? It's about a company called Enabled. That is the name of their company. And unfortunately, they can't have a skill with the name Enabled. So I thought that I escalated this last week, but the question is there any way for them to get exceptions to those kinds of rules? Because obviously Enabled is a pretty protected word.
Yeah. So like the biggest thing that you need. Okay, so let me just preface this real quick. I don't have any ability to offer any kind of, like pre-approval or any kind of like, I'll tell Jack and he'll get you going. I can't do that. So what I can try, I can kind of advise you a little bit. This is kind of one of those things where like you're trying real hard to try to utilize the known brand, the known concept, the known everything. Everybody already knows this one thing. So we just want to put this one thing in this other thing. And it's like it's like a company named Open. It's like so this is one of those situations where really, really creative script writing would do you very well. I actually didn't know about this until about a month ago, but once I found out, I went crazy into it. There's a script writing aspect to writing a skill that I never put these two together before, but like if you think about writing a skill and you think about the actual, the start to finish, and if you write that out like a script, like you're writing a movie, then and not worrying about the invocation name and everything else, and then see how it flows and see how it goes, and then write it out in the way that Alexa needs to be spoken to, it tends to help the creative process. The name Enabled, like if you were to say Open Enabled, it's it's so close to a what we call a 1P or a protected or like a first platform word that we just can't get around. And it's not like they refuse to. They don't have like a button. They can just be like, okay, click, you can have it. It's really all about the functionality of the way that it works, the way that the natural language understanding process even just works.
Yep.
And we can't play with that code. That's changing like the very base code of Alexa. So it's one of those real hard ones where I really want to help and I really want to support. It's the word itself is tough to try to. If there was like a sentence or a motto that was connected to your company that your customers would know, that they hey Culligan man, like if there was something like that you could use instead of, it's perfectly fine. There's a lot of skills out there that have their invocation name has nothing to do with their product. It's just one of those weird ones that I really want to help, but I can't. it's real hard. That's a tough one to try to break out.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
That's good feedback though. And I'll continue to try to get this to escalate. But the challenge they have, and this happens sometimes, is they're just not getting any responses.
And that's different entirely. Yeah.
Right.
I can go keep
it would be nice at a minimum for them to just get a response that says, I'm sorry, we can't help you. But I'll continue to push on that one. That's great.
It's likely that they're working on it. That's the thing, is that they work really hard on these things, and it takes a long time for them. And they have testing procedures. Again, and every one of our teams has testing procedures. Every single one. If you send them up a ticket with a word on it or something like that, they have to test all of them. So if they're trying to get it to work, then they try to get it to work. They're obsessive like we are. Okay. So it may take extra long because of that alone, but.
So back to that patient medical record, Gold Zulu said in the UK, it works exactly like that. There's a patient medical record. You can share it if you allow it, but the patient owns it. That's pretty cool. Agency 2 asked, how do we clone a skill? A new brand wants to publish an Alexa skill using our master skill. And the Ask Clone functionality got deprecated from the CLI a while back. So the easiest way I can recommend to do this is that if you have your code in a GitHub repository, you can actually, when you go to the CLI and you use Ask New, one of the options you have is to provide a GitHub repository that will be the basis for that new skill. So you could very easily, without having to go through like cloning and all that extra work, I'd have to remember what the actual command is here. Let me go see if I can find it really quick. Alexa, Ask New CLI. Oh, not CLU. Okay. Overview. I know you guys can't see my screen right now, but I'll dig this up.
Jeff has one of those really loud, clacky keyboards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is there another kind?
No. Oh yes, there are many that are silent.
Oh. Let's see.
That are
not
in my office.
I like a loud keyboard. Ask.
Does anybody else have anybody that works with anybody that has one of those keyboards? I don't know why they it's so loud. They're so loud.
Yeah, it is. It is loud. I have 2 mechanical keyboards here, and I absolutely love them.
I know, and everybody who has them loves them, but the rest of them.
Yes, I get it. I also haven't had to work in an office with anyone, and
yeah, we work from home, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I have a nice mechanical one here, but my dog's the only one that hears it.
Right.
Yeah.
So Agency 2, I just published the syntax to do this, but it is the syntax is ask new, and then you provide the marker template URL. So it's -- template URL, and then the URL to whatever your GitHub repository is, and it will create a new skill based on that template. The catch to that is that it has to be a skill, like it has to actually have been a skill template. It has to have all the appropriate files and things in the right place. And if it like a skill.json and all those other pieces. So that would be my recommendation. TradeLast also has another hack to that, which is to just create a new skill, remove everything from it, and then copy the code of your project into that one. That would also certainly work.
That's what I always recommend people do.
But a lot of people have stuff in GitHub, so it's pretty easy to, like I built a starter template for myself that has all the pieces and parts that I want there by default every time. And then I can just use that as my starter kit rather than starting from scratch every time.
Yeah, sometimes, and that's why always put your stuff in a GitHub. Do something. Upload it, back it up on your S3 or whatever you got. Right. But always try to do that. It's just a really good practice. But if you do need to clone it like quick and easy, like real fast, copy, paste, and dump. That's all you got to do is just put everything right. Make a new skill, put everything in the exact same place, change the invocation name, off you go.
Yep, and I can't recommend enough. I'm actually giving a talk at an event.
That's right.
Giving a talk at an event next week called That Conference. It's up in Wisconsin. Ryan's going to join me there, and I'm giving a talk there. It's the closing keynote, and the title of the talk is Make, and it's about making things and making them available to other people on the internet. And so one of the big stories that I tell in there is the idea of, like, you wrote some code today, you learned something today, write a blog post about it. Even if you're the only person that ever reads it again, you'll have a resource for how to remember how to do the thing that you learned today, that you didn't know before today. But on top of that, you probably will create a resource that someone else finds somewhere, even if it's only a couple of people. And you'll be amazed the feedback you get, but also kind of that goodwill, because we all go out and search the internet for answers all the time, and we find other people's blog posts. And the idea is to just if you're creating things, put it out there, make it available to others. And that's why I always push people. Like, it doesn't have to be GitHub, but there's lots of different code repositories. But if you make something, unless it's proprietary or secret or whatever, put it out there. Let people take a look at it and understand how you solved the problem, because you may have done it the way that makes sense to a bunch of people that, like the absolute pros, the absolute experts would say, oh, I would never do that. Well, that's fine. But there's 1,000 ways to solve every problem in code, and 999 of them aren't wrong. I'm sure there is a wrong one, but for the most part, if it works, it works. Okay, we're running out of time here, and we still have more questions. I'm having trouble getting my in-skill product for my skill set. All the basics are there, but I'd like to have someone take a look because I'm not sure on next steps. We're going to reach out to get a one-on-one session to fill the gaps. Boy, we don't have a fantastic one-to-one session on like education, but I will say, Chris, if you want to reach out to me, I can see what we can do. I'm happy to take a little time if a developer just needs to get over a hurdle. I'm happy to be that guy to help. So reach out to me directly. I am at Jeff Blankenburg on literally every service you can think of, including TikTok. So like whatever you need, reach out to me where you're comfortable, and I'll see what I can do to help you out.
You know, I had a lot of trouble with skill building with the coding part because I'm very small amounts of code can stay in my brain at any given time.
Sure.
Otherwise, I may forget my name or how to tie my shoes. So I started using one of the visual skill builders online just to put it in my brain. I mean, you maybe just like if you're trying to learn how to do it, the visual skill builder things that you can go online. I can't remember.
Yeah, like VoiceFlow.
VoiceFlow. It really helps to kind of visualize to where your stuff is going, what it's doing, because they have little blocks that you just snap together, and it kind of, this is what it does, and this person asks this question, and it's like Visio. It's a very easy way to, and I'm a very visual person, and that really helped to try to even just get all this stuff in my brain. Code questions, I can't answer them, but I can absolutely draw you a picture,
Sure.
So.
Sure. Bob Cartwright chimed in, referring back to when I was talking about letting AI pay your bills. And I like to think that I'm really cautious about how I speak about that, because I recognize that not everybody is in the fortunate position to have more money than they necessarily know what to do with, or just let that all handle paying my bills. I'm using this as completely a hypothetical situation. And I recognize that there are many people in many situations in life that can't just let that go for whatever reason. They have personal reasons. Maybe they're not paying something or whatever. And I fully recognize that. I am not somebody that's sitting on a pile of cash saying, why isn't everybody like me? I recognize that there are challenges in every one of these scenarios where people are going to want to have their own personal handle on how this stuff works. The point that I'm trying to make when I talk about that kind of stuff is that it is possible for many people, whether they have enough money or they don't, to allow systems, AI or otherwise, to help them or completely make those decisions autonomously for them. But that being said, in the same way that if you want to be the person that decides what you eat tonight, you should. If you want to be the person that manages your money, you should. But the point in all of this is that if there are things that you don't want to do, or you feel like that's just extra burden on me that I don't want to have to fuss with, then yeah, those are the things you should try to offload to AI so that you can focus on the things you do care about. That was the only point I was really trying to make. So I don't want anyone to think that this is some kind of elitist system where obviously only people that have money will be able to have these kinds of benefits. I think it can benefit everyone, but everybody's going to have their own personal approaches to a lot of different things. Anyway.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, if the internet has shown us anything, it's shown us that these things don't stay in the hands of one person for very long.
No.
The thing about the internet is that I was born in 1978, so I had an analog childhood and a digital adulthood, and I can honestly tell you, like, there are people are always trying. The idea of the internet was born out of making everything free for everyone. Like that's here, you know. And so like I remember YouTube before ads. It happened. It did exist, kids. And that's where it's, I mean, I'm not saying that that kind of mentality is not valid. It absolutely is, because this is something that we talk about a lot in Seattle. But the idea that this would not be for everybody is not true. It's going to be for everybody, whether everybody likes it or not.
So here's what I have to do. We are at time. There's a number of good questions still here in the chat that I would love to spend another hour answering. But what I would recommend, if you guys are not already members of our Slack community, go there, ask your questions, drop them right in general. Or if it makes sense to put it in a specific channel, then put it in that specific channel. But I am absolutely blown away every single day at the number of questions that are asked and the volume of responses and answers that people are receiving. The community as a whole is helping itself, which is just amazing to me. That's a sign that we really have some caring, passionate, talented people participating. But ask your questions there. Bring them next week. I'm going to go through and try and capture some of these. And maybe I can start our session next week by answering some of these. But thank you guys all for tuning in today. This has been a whirlwind hour. We covered a ton of different topics. And I definitely want to make sure that I thank Scott and Ryan for being here, because you guys make this a whole lot easier to have a conversation outside my head.
Of course.
So with that, thank you guys all for tuning in. I will try to dig through some of these other questions offline, but don't forget, Alexa Live is tomorrow. We have an Alexa and Friends episode and an episode of Tech Talks on Thursday, and we'll be back with Office Hours again next Tuesday. So thank you guys all for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.